Before we get into the mechanics, go ahead and, subscribe to Iron Age Instincts and share this with someone who still thinks medieval people lived in cold, smoke-filled huts. That myth needs to die. What I'm about to break down isn't folklore or romantic reconstruction. It's hard engineering, thermal mass, airflow control and fuel optimization, perfected centuries before modern HVAC. The system is so efficient that, honestly, when you understand how it works, you'll start questioning why we burn through so much firewood and propane today. Medieval builders weren't primitive. They were resource-constrained, and constraint breeds ruthless efficiency. Now, let's get into the design. The hypocaust system quietly outperformed modern heating logic. Most people associate hypocaust heating with Roman bathhouses, but the system didn't disappear with Rome. Variations continued into the medieval period across monasteries, castles and manor houses. At its core, the hypocaust used a raised floor supported by small pillars, creating an underfloor chamber. A fire burned in a separate furnace room. Hot air and smoke travelled beneath the floor and through hollow wall flues before exiting via a chimney. What makes this illegal level efficient isn't just the concept of radiant heat. It's the separation of combustion from living space. The fire burned hotter because airflow was controlled and oxygen supply was optimized. The living area received consistent radiant warmth without smoke contamination. Instead of heating air that immediately rises and escapes, the system heated masonry. And masonry stores energy. Thermal mass is the secret weapon here. Once stone and brick absorb heat, they release it slowly over hours. One firing could maintain warmth long after the flames died down. That's not just comfort. That's fuel efficiency. Medieval masons understood thermal mass better than many modern homeowners. Stone floors and thick walls weren't aesthetic choices. They were batteries. When heat travelled beneath those surfaces, the entire structure became a radiator. Modern forced air systems heat air quickly, but air loses heat quickly. Stone does not. If you want to apply this today, start thinking in terms of mass. A masonry heater, sometimes called a Russian stove or Finnish contraflow stove, operates on the same principle. You burn a very hot, fast fire for a short period. The exhaust gases snake through internal channels before exiting the chimney. By the time the smoke leaves, most of its heat has been absorbed into brick or stone. If you're building off-grid or renovating a rural property, you can incorporate a masonry heater core into a central wall. Fire it once or twice a day. Let the mass do the rest. This drastically reduces wood consumption compared to a steel wood stove that radiates heat unevenly and cools the moment the fire drops. Controlled airflow is, the overlooked engineering breakthrough. Efficiency isn't just about materials, it's about air management. Medieval heating systems, they carefully controlled draft. The furnace room was often just a bit lower than the heated chamber, encouraging natural convection. Chimneys were narrow and tall to increase draw. Flues were deliberately routed to maximize surface contact with masonry before venting. Modern DIY builders can learn from this straight away. If you're installing a wood-burning system, focus on flue length and internal routing. Longer internal pathways, honestly, increase heat transfer. Insulated chimneys improve draft and reduce creosote buildup. Even small improvements in airflow design can, increase heat retention dramatically. A practical step you can take right now is evaluating your chimney's draft efficiency. Poor draft wastes fuel and creates smoke problems. A properly sized flue relative to firebox volume makes a measurable difference. Medieval builders knew this by experience. We have the physics to confirm it. The system reduced fire risk in ways most people overlook. Open hearths were dangerous. Sparks, smoke inhalation, and carbon monoxide were constant threats. By separating the combustion chamber from living space, hypocaust-style systems reduced direct flame exposure. The hottest components were contained in masonry. If you're serious about survival resilience, this matters. In a long-term grid-down scenario, indoor air quality becomes a life-or-death issue. A sealed combustion design that vents exhaust fully outside while radiating stored heat inside is far safer than open burning. You can replicate aspects of this safety model by installing sealed wood-burning inserts or masonry heaters with gasketed doors and external air intakes. External air supply is crucial. It prevents the fire from pulling heated indoor air out of the house, which wastes energy and reduces efficiency. In medieval Europe, fuel scarcity was real. Forests were heavily managed. Firewood wasn't burned carelessly. A heating system that could extract maximum BTUs from minimal wood had strategic value. The hypocaust and later masonry heater designs achieved near-complete combustion. High-temperature burns reduce particulate emissions and leave behind fine ash rather than half-burned charcoal. That means more heat from less fuel. If you're heating with wood today, test this principle. Burn smaller loads at higher temperatures rather than slow, smouldering fires. Use seasoned hardwood with moisture content below 20%. You'll get more heat, less creosote, and cleaner exhaust. Medieval efficiency depended on fuel preparation as much as architecture. You can integrate medieval principles into modern builds right now. You don't need a castle or monastery to apply this knowledge. Start with placement. Centralize your heat source so thermal mass radiates evenly. Incorporate brick, stone, or even earthen plasters around heating cores. Avoid relying solely on thin metal stoves in corner placements. If building new, consider radiant floor heating embedded in concrete slabs. While powered differently, the principle is identical to hypocaust design: heat the mass, not the air. Even passive solar design borrows from this logic. Sunlight enters, strikes dense surfaces, and those surfaces release warmth overnight. For off-grid cabins, a compact masonry heater with internal flue channels is one of the most efficient heating methods available. It uses less wood, produces steady heat, and reduces dependence on constant tending. What makes this heating system remarkable is not nostalgia. It's the convergence of necessity and intelligence. Medieval builders had limited resources and zero tolerance for waste. The solutions they developed were rooted in observation, iteration, and physics. For serious history buffs, this is a reminder that technological progress isn't always linear. Sometimes we abandon efficient systems for convenience and speed. For survivalists, it's a blueprint for resilience. Thermal mass, controlled airflow, sealed combustion, and centralized heat are principles that don't age. Understanding these systems gives you options, and options are power. If this kind of deep dive into historical engineering speaks to you, subscribe to Iron Age Instincts and share this with someone who values hard-earned knowledge over modern myths. There's more buried history like this waiting to be unpacked.